Edinburgh Castle is said to be haunted due to its centuries of violent history, including being a royal residence, a prison, and military garrison that witnessed countless battles, tortures, and deaths. Various spirits are believed to reside there, such as the Headless Drummer Boy and the Phantom Piper, whose legends connect to imminent attacks, vanished explorers, respectively. The tragic stories of prisoners held in the dungeons and Lady Glemis, a woman burned at the stake, contribute to the supernatural claims, which include disembodied sounds, unexplained cold spots, and the unsettling feeling of being pushed by an unseen force. Back in 2009, my family took a trip to Edinburgh during the summer holidays. We decided to go on an Edinburgh's Vaults ghost tour on one of those nights we were there. To give it a bit of backstory, it was me. I was 7 years old at the time, my 2 older brothers, my mom and dad. My dad, a retired policeman, is probably one of the biggest skeptics you'll ever come across, and the idea of anything ghostly or related to ghosts, he just laughed off as nonsense. The Edinburgh Vaults are an underground maze of old vaults dating back to the late 1700s. They were made as a solution to the overpopulated city at the time. The poor were made to live in these vaults as they had no other option. A lot of people fell ill here and died due to the damp, wet conditions. So the tour began, and we descended down into the vaults. We began with taking pictures and seeing if we could find any orbs. Nothing too out of the ordinary for the first half of the tour. A group of about 12 of us gathered into a room named as Mr. Boots' room, which is said to be haunted by a dark, benevolent spirit. This is where it gets a bit weird. My dad distinctly remembers smelling one of the most foul smells he's ever come across in his life. He said it came to him only in one inhale, and then it was gone. He even remembers his nose burning from the ghastly smell that only lingered for a few moments. Not one other person in the room encountered the smell other than my dad. Bear in mind, this vault was very small with low ceilings. After the tour, we went to the hotel. As we were all getting ready for bed, my dad remembers feeling a burning sensation on his back. I remember my mom saying, "Oh my God, what happened to your back?" to my dad. His back was covered with 3 distinct scratches, like a claw mark of 3 fingers. The scratch was about 8 inches long. We were all pretty alarmed as to what had done this. By morning, the scratch was gone. This happened years ago, October or November 2011, when I was living in London and working as a study abroad advisor for American college students. It's been on my mind a lot recently. Every semester at the program I worked at, there's an optional trip to Scotland that starts and ends with a night in Edinburgh. There's a tour of the Highlands in between. A couple of students wanted to do the walking tour of the haunted vaults. I told the students wanted to meet outside the hostel they wanted to join, and was surprised nearly every single one of them came down. It was around 30 or 40 altogether. Most of the tour was very interesting because of the history, but I thought the ghost tours and haunted aspect of it were pretty gimmicky. And the tour guide took us through 3 of the underground vaults. But the students were having fun, and I just was glad they weren't getting too drunk at the hostel and embarrassing me, so I was happy. The guide started talking about this entity that lives in the 3rd vault. No one really knows what this thing looks like. There are lots of reported ghost sightings, but the entity is different. Only that there are several stories of people leaving the vault and finding scratches on their bodies. 2 Canadian tourists apparently left the vaults covered in scratches, and there are a handful of other stories. And then one creepy story the guide told was that a woman took her younger daughter on the tour, and when the flashlight went out in the 3rd vault, the mother realized the daughter had moved all the way across the room. The daughter said someone with 3 fingers grabbed her hand and walked her there. When I was there with the students and other tourists, the vault was super cold, and the guy's flashlight went out. It was spooky because that's a spooky setting, but again, I thought it was sort of a cheesy tourist trap. We finished the tour and I went back to my room to Skype with my stepdad, a history professor, all about the cool things I've seen. After our call, I went to change into my PJs and as I took off my pants, I noticed 3 long, perfectly straight scratches that basically wrapped just above my knee up to my thigh around toward my butt. They looked like cat or kitten scratches. I hadn't felt a single damn thing when I was on tour. It scared the crap out of me, naturally. I called my best friend in London and made her get on Skype to see them. And then I went down to where the students were hanging out, and asked a couple of the girls I'd become closer to come look at it in the bathroom. I felt like I was going crazy. A couple of them saw scratches and were like, nope, 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 bye, I'm out of here. A little bit later, one of the male students came up to me and said, hey, me too. He had 3 scratches behind one of his ears. My husband and I are currently on holiday in Edinburgh for a week. We love a good walking tour, especially ones about ghosts or famous crimes. Tonight we went on a ghost tour of a Greyfriars Kirkyard and the Edinburgh Vaults. My husband isn't really into the paranormal or anything, but he's a pretty sensitive guy. The Kirkyard was fine. The tour guide told us a few gruesome stories about the prisoner camp that was there, and the murderers, Hare and Burke. Then he took us down to the vault. We went into 3 vaults. The first thing was nothing much. The second one had a stone circle in it, which we were told not to step into as bad things had happened to people who have. Our tour guide told us that we had to call the ambulance once because a man stepped into the circle. He instantly fainted and hit his head on one of the rocks and split it open pretty bad. The guide dared us all to step in, but no one did. I was tempted, but my husband said, don't you dare. Pretty emphatically, so I didn't, and then we left. The third vault was completely dark. The only light was from the flashlight the guide had, and he kept it covered most of the time. He began telling us a story of the Edinburgh fire and of a family who escaped down into the vaults. The woman had children were shut away in the vaults by their husbands, who left to help fight the fires. They never came back, and their families were essentially baked alive in the vaults from the heat of the fire above. To save their children from suffering, the women slit their throats before killing themselves. The whole time he's telling us these stories, my husband is pretty quiet, but kept grabbing me and grabbing my hand for comfort. The only thing he says to me in a whisper is, do you smell that? I didn't smell anything, but just as he said that, the guy mentioned people smelling sulfur in the vaults, which smells like a fart. I look at my husband like, did you fart? The tour finishes and we leave, and my husband is clearly shaken, and he wants to get away ASAP. He said the whole time we were there in the vault, he felt an urgent sense of needing to get out. He also said he felt a cool breeze on the back of his neck, like someone blowing through a straw directly on his neck. He also said he wanted to cry at one point and didn't know why, as well as smelling the sulfur, none of which I felt. He said he felt cold most of the time until just before the guide started talking about the fire, and that was when he suddenly felt very hot and began sweating profusely. He was very shaken up when we had left, and his pulse was racing. I felt absolutely nothing the whole time, even though I desperately wanted to. I totally believe him, though. He's not the type of person who just makes things up. Guess I'm just not in the right wavelength or something.